Hello and welcome back to Let's YOLO Oblivion. Except, of course, we already died in the last episode, and really the only reason for this video is so that people watching it can't come to the conclusion that, oh, part 9 is the last one. He must die at the end of that. And I did promise that I would go into what I think happened, because Jodar is not the only one who was working against the Oblivion crisis. So I think that Martin, seeing the mysterious cat person who came to tell him about being the son of the late Emperor Uriel Septim, die, he rallied the remaining guards of Kvatch, and they managed to retake the castle. Unfortunately, the Count was already dead, as you already know from playing the game. Before he made his way to Werin Priory, where a very disappointed Joffrey learned of Jodar's death from him, after being attacked after the monastery was attacked, of course, and they had to make their way to Cloud Ruler Temple, just as in the normal gameplay. Of course, normally what happens from there, if I'm remembering everything correctly, we have to find a Daedric artifact, get Tiber Septim's blood from his armor, and if we want, we can close the Oblivion portals in order to get more allies for Bruma during that confrontation, before finally venturing into Markund Cameron's Paradise to reclaim the Amulet of Kings. And then, so, how does that play out? Barris probably has to go get the bloody armor. Says, and we have to decode the commentaries of the, well, he has to decode the commentaries of the Magisterium Xerxes and figure out where the cultist hangout is. No, the commentaries. He decodes the commentaries to figure out where the hideout is in an attempt to steal the amulet back, but that's doomed to fail, unfortunately. So, I'm thinking, yeah, Varius and some other Blade agents become the key actors in the stage from here on out. They find the commentaries books. They manage to decode it, but they don't get the Amulet of Kings back, of course, because that's just not how it goes. As for the Daedric artifact, now here's something I've been thinking about. Mehrunes Dagon, aka Mehrunes Jakajit, he's not exactly, doesn't exactly strike me as the person who wants to take anything. I'm really terrible at telling stories. Probably should have figured this out before I started talking, but it's more fun this way. No, okay, so they go to Cloud Ruler Temple. They have to track agents of the Blade such as Barrius and Joffrey and whatnot. They help track down the cultist shrine. I think it's at the north of Gold Road, and fail to retrieve the Amulet of Kings. So they have to take the Magisterium Xerxes and figure out how to construct a portal. Now, I figure retrieving the armor is pretty much as it goes down if the player's the player hasn't died from a scamp, complete failure. But the Daedric artifact, I think, would be Dagon's razor. And they didn't go out to find it. It just sort of appeared one day at the front door of the temple. And why, you might ask? Okay, this is what I was getting into before, kind of getting ahead of myself. Mehrunes Dagon is, because you see him as just a big kitten, which is why he has a natural tendency towards destruction. He's not malevolent in any sense, but he is the Daedric Lord of Change more than of domination. That's Molag Bal's territory. He arranged for the Daedric artifact to be delivered. And because he doesn't want to take over Tamriel or anything, I figure his goal is not much more than actually happens in the Oblivion Crisis. He wants to knock over the Septim Line. This eventually leads to the fragmentation of the Empire into Hammerfell is independent. When Skyrim starts, Hammerfell's independent. You have the old Empire. Oh, and Black Marsh is independent. You have the old Empire, which is just Cyrodiil, Skyrim, and there's a civil war going on in what remains of Morrowind that wasn't destroyed by the volcano. And then you have the Aldmeri Dominion of the Somerset Islands, Valenwood, and not elsewhere anymore.
You.
What's going on with you?
What's going on with you?
Stop talking.
They say syndicates exquisite.
And not elsewhere anymore, which is just too bad because you can't make those fun elsewhere puns anymore. Yeah. So, who goes into the paradise, though, to confront Mark and Cameron? Stop talking, you people! Radiant AI. But who goes into the paradise to confront Macro and Cameron? Since it's not the player character anymore. And who helps the other cities with their Oblivion Gate so Bruma can have allies? Because I think that happens. I think the people most responsible for helping the other cities is a rather mysterious figure who's known for hanging out in the castle at Anvil, who nobody knows his name, but has this weird ability to just kind of walk into a gate and 10-20 minutes later walk out with a sigil stone. Just stealing it right up from right under the noses of the Dremora. And of course the other guilds help out too, but they're a little bit more direct in their approach. Who goes to the paradise? Ooh, better yet, nobody actually gets the armor. See, I'm just making this up off the top of my head. So actually, no. They don't get... Well, would that work? Because Martin is a descendant of Tiber Septim, and... Yeah. Better yet. Nobody gets the armor because it's haunted by ghosts. Which means that in order to get the blood of a divine, you, as a descendant of Tiber Septim, I think, or close enough, Brother Martin, have to actually be a part of the ritual, which means you're the only one who can go. Congratulations. You invade Mark and Cameron's paradise, confront him, and when he goes off monologuing, like pretty much everyone I think would do, I certainly did it the first time I played, just interrupt him with an arrow to the throat. And then, of course, Amulet of Kings arrive in the Imperial City, but so does Mehrunes Jakhajit. So that goes down pretty much as it does when you don't die halfway through the game. Martin Septim has to sacrifice himself in order to become the Avatar of Akatosh, thereby ending the Septim line. And there's a really cool cutscene involving a dragon and a giant Daedra prince, and they fight and there's stabbing. And from then on, you can go to the temple and receive the blessing of the Avatar of Akatosh, and it lasts for quite a while. And there's a statue by the people of Kvatch put up to Jodar, who broke the siege of Kvatch and died clearing the castle. And there's a statue of Barrius, who is the hero of Bruma, and Martin became his own statue when he turned into the one in the Temple of the One. And that's about it. So, if that rambling made any sense at all, I have some more time to fill, so I'm gonna open up this console here and give myself a whole bunch of gold. And then the warp in the west. Now see, should have read this earlier because it gave me more block. The Warp in the West, a report compiled by Ulvinus Tarot, Blades Archivist, secret for your eyes only. Let me offer my congratulations to your... Wait. Okay, so apparently it's either for everyone everywhere's eyes, or I don't know, it somehow became not very secret. Okay, let me offer my congratulations to your lordship for your recent appointment as ambassador to the court of Wayrest. Your lordship asked me for a review of existing Blades accounts from 3E417 concerning the Warp in the West, also known as the End of Daggerfall. Have not played that game yet. That'll be one of the series I get into. I think I'll do Morrowind next, though. And for the summary of the current state of affairs there, since your lordship was in Black Marsh serving in the staff of Admiral Sosorius at the time, you probably know of these events only from imperial proclamations and chapel declarations, which identify this period as the Miracle of Peace. During the Miracle of Peace, according to official accounts, the formerly war-racked Iliac... See, I think that's an I and an L. Ran into the same problem with that guard, Ilian. But Bay region was transformed overnight from a patchwork of squabbling duchies and petty kingdoms into the peaceful modern countries of Hammerfell, Sentinel, Wayrest, and Orsinium. The Miracle of Peace, also known as the Warp in the West, is celebrated as the product of miraculous interventions of Stendarr, Mara, and Akatosh to transform this troublesome region into peaceful, well-governed imperial countries. The catastrophic destruction of landscape and property and the large loss of life attending upon this miracle is understood to have been tragic and beyond mortal comprehension. Inasmuch as this account confirms and validates the current borders of these countries and identifies the rulers of and boundaries of these countries as ordained by the Nine, the Miracle of Peace serves imperial objectives of peaceful consolidation of ancient petty states and sovereigns into manageable imperial jurisdictions. The other remarkable features of these events, mass disappearances, armies mysteriously transported hundreds of miles or completely annihilated, titanic storms, and celestial phenomenon, apparent local discontinuities of time, fit comfortably into the notion that these events are part of vast, mysterious divine intervention. However, This is only the public account of these events, and as you may suspect, it conflicts with many other accounts. In short, while this explanation suits imperial policy, it has little historical validity. Your lordship should know that the Blades have concluded there is no plausible historical account of these events and despairs that a plausible historical account shall ever be produced. The Blades have concluded that the miracle occurred insofar as the events are inexplicable, but the Blades strongly doubt the miracle was of divine origin. There is good reason to believe that the ruling families of the four modern Iliac Bay countries had forewarning of the event. There is also some evidence that some of these ruling families may have been directly or indirectly responsible for the event. We do not know the exact sequence of actions that produced the event, although we are confident that the totem artifact was involved, and that a Blades agent was involved in employing that artifact. We unfortunately lost contact with that agent immediately after the event. His report might have gone some way to resolving the contradictory and paradoxical accounts of the event. The Blades have on file few reports from agents dating from the warp in the West period. Many of our agents were lost in the initial dislocations, and others were lost in the confusion after the event. I present a few of these reports and give you a general sense of their limitations, including the report of your diplomatic predecessor, Lord Strail. You will have had access to other private and rumored accounts of this period. I believe you will agree that these documents raise more questions than they answer. The report of Hammerfell agent Briarbird. I was on assignment in the Alakir Desert, a few miles south of Bergama. On the 9th of Frostfall, I was encamped as it was still early morning. When I felt the ground shake so violently, I was thrown to the ground. Dazed, I was aware of a great roar of sandstorm, which alarmed me, as I had been on a high dune and had seen nothing like that on the horizon. It was on me before I was even on my knees, burying me and my camp. When I crawled my way out of the sand, I realized that I must make haste and get to Bergama as soon as possible, as all my food and water had been swept away. The sun was just rising as I began. Like I said, when I reached Bergama, it was nightfall. The town was in chaos, filled with the soldiers of Sentinel. The lord of Bergama's fortress was in ruins. There had been an attack, but no one had seen it. Only the invasion that followed it. The soldiers of Queen Akorithi of Sentinel refused to be interviewed about how they had accomplished a sneak attack, but I had come to learn that the whole of northern Hammerfell now belonged to them. Even stranger, I discovered that my walk from sunrise to sundown had not taken me 1 day, but 2. It was now the 11th day of the month, not the 10th. I had lost a day somewhere, and so apparently had everyone else, except Akorithi's soldiers, who somehow were aware of the correct date. I since have concluded that they had received advanced warning, and so were better prepared to deal with the strange confusion of time and dates associated with the warp in the West. The report of High Rock agent Grey Lady. I was, at the time of the warp, undercover as a witch in the Skeffington Coven of Phygius in central High Rock. In order to give my report, I had volunteered for an expedition to gather supplies, which would allow me the freedom to reach my contact in Camlorn. I was traveling northeast along the foothills of the Wrothgarian Mountains on the 9th of Frostfell, when I felt a great heat behind me, like a fire. I turned, but I regret to say I cannot tell you what I saw. The healers told me my eyes were burned out of my sockets. I think I must have fallen into a state of semi-consciousness, for I distinctly remember falling as the ground seemed to give way beneath me. Then there was a series of explosions in the distance, to the south, and I heard a high whistling noise that were getting louder, coming closer. I had my shield with me, and fortunately anticipated that volleys of some sort were falling from the sky. Though I could not see them, I could hear them coming from a distance away, and was able to use my shield to block them from striking me. The assault stopped suddenly, and I could smell smoke. I learned later that most of the forest of Yaklan and Phaeagius had caught fire in an inferno that started further south in Dania and the Ilisan Hills. Fortunately, I kept my bearings and moved north, finally reaching a temple in the wilderness where my wounds were healed as well as they could be. It was there I learned that there had been a three-way clash between Daggerfall, Wayrest, and Orsinium not far from where I had been, and that the land midway between their kingdoms had been decimated. The report of Ambassador Lord Nagon Strail. His Imperial Majesty had sent me on a delicate errand, the details of which I cannot convey in this unsecure report. But my official capacity was to be the Emperor's ambassador to the court of Wayrest. From there, I was to meet with an old friend, Lady Brisenia, who was already in the vicinity, foregoing any attempt at stealth. I was on an imperial barge sailing westward on Biolse, the morning of the 9th of Frostfall. I remember it was a slightly chilly day, but the sky was very blue. We had just passed the delightful riverside village of Candlemas when the captain sounded the alarm. Alarm. Some kind of rum-based alarm, I guess. There in front of us was a colossal wall of water, at least 30 feet high. It smashed our barge to splinters before any of us had a chance to react. I woke up on the shore, having been rescued by one of my servants who had miraculously not lost consciousness. He and I and one other man were the only survivors. I thought at first that it was suspiciously similar to what happened to another agent of ours in High Rock, but a short time before, where a freak storm had shipwrecked him in the Iliac Bay near Privateer's Hold. Furious and determined to see if similar forces were at work, I began a quick march to Wayrest. The march, however, was not so terribly quick. The villages all along the Biolse were on fire, and battles raged between the orcs of Orsinium and the soldiers of King Edware in the formerly independent principality of Govedon, just east of Wayrest. I am an accomplished mage and quite able to defend myself, but it took the better part of a week to make it those few miles to Wayrest. King Edoware and his queen Baronzia were celebrating their great victories when I arrived. By then I had gathered the barest facts of the matter, that simultaneously there were 7 great battles in the Iliac Bay, and no one could describe them at all, only their blood-soaked aftermath. To summarize, on the 9th of Frostfall there had been 44 independent kingdoms, countries, baronies, and dukedoms surrounding the Iliac Bay. If one includes the unconquered territories of Roughgarian Mountains and Dragontail Mountains, the High Rock Seacoast, and Isle of Belfiera, and the Alkir Desert. On the 11th of Frostfall, there were but 4. Daggerfall, Sentinel, Wayrest, and Orsinium, and all the points where they meet lay in ruins as the armies continued to do battle. I was determined to find the truth from the king, even if I had to be a most undiplomatic diplomat to do so. Edoware, though a generally jovial sort, had blustered, saying he did not want to give out military secrets. The queen, ever calm with those unreadable red eyes of hers, told me, "We do not know." I think it is safe to assume that Baronzai did not tell me everything, but the facts of her story, which I later verified after pointed interviews in Daggerfall, Sentinel, and Orsinium, was that they had learned that a certain powerful ancient weapon was going to be activated. I shan't give the name of it here. The Numidium is what they're talking about. Out of fear that it would be used against Wayrest. The king had attempted to buy it from the young adventurer who had discovered its whereabouts. Edward believed, as it turned out quite rightly, that other powers in the bay had also attempted to win ownership of this device. What happened then, as Baronzai said, we do not know. The morning of the 9th and the morning of the 11th somehow merged through some sort of warp in the west, and Wayrest found themselves at war. Their land had expanded threefold, but they were under attack by Daggerfall to the west, Orsinium to the east, and Sentinel to the south. There had been no time to understand what had happened. The king said they had simply reacted, sending their armies to defend their lands against enemies whose kingdoms had also gained great territorial advantages. Now, the battles continue on now, months later, as I return to the Imperial City to make my report. What more do I have to say? They are bloody, violent clashes, as is always the case with modern warfare. But I have been to the black and desolate no man's land between the four remaining kingdoms. No mortal army caused that devastation. I can say that the force that shook the Iliac Bay on the 10th of Frostfall, 3rd era 417, was infinitesimally greater than the power these mighty kingdoms are wielding today. I can say that there were other strange events on that day which kept the kingdoms from breaking free of the Empire and accomplished likely more besides. And I can say there's nothing left of it, this power, this weapon, in the bay. The warp that it created swallowed it up. Current political affairs in the Iliac Bay, almost 20 years after years have passed, and the region, though transformed, has stabilized. There are no more disputed territories, and the kingdoms of Daggerfall, Wayrest, and Orsinium hold their new borders in relative peace. Wayrest spreads across the eastern coast of the bay, stretching from the land formerly called Anteclaire to half of Gavadon. Eadware has passed on to his ancestors, leaving his kingdom in the hands of his daughter, Elisana, who has two children by her royal consort and seems likely to hold her father's lands. Your lordship may also choose to communicate directly with King Helseth and Queen Baronziah in Mournhold. Their primary preoccupations are, of course, with Morrowind's affairs, but they may still have useful observation upon Wayrest's ruling families and political environment that may aid you in your understanding of the court of Queen Elisana. King Gortwog of Orsinium controls much of the Rothgarian Mountains as well as the profitable river coast of the Biolse. He persists in demands that his Orsinium be recognized as an imperial province separate from High Rock. The Elder Council treats Gortwog as a recognized king and collects taxes directly from Orsinium, but officially Orsinium remains a county of High Rock, though technically it spans both the provinces of High Rock and Hammerfell. Sentinel has gained the most land, sprawling across the entire southern Iliac Bay from Abibon Gora beyond the Dragontail Mountains to the edge of Mornoth, Orsinium's territory. Queen Akorithi, at her death, left her enormous kingdom to her only surviving son, Lortan, who is now surely one of the most powerful kings in Tamriel. Daggerfell is still ruled by the Breton king, Gothred, and the Redguard queen, Alk the First? Abkai. Their lands now encompasses all of the western High Rock, from the border they share with Wayrest at Anteclaire to the east to Yakalan to the north. They have 4 children now and are much beloved in their realms. If there are other repercussions of the mysterious warp in the west, they have not yet come to our attention in the course of 20 years of observation. So, that's the ending of Daggerfall in a nutshell. The Numidium is activated, but because it's the Numidium and not the big fuzzy thing.
I'm Phintius, owner and proprietor of the first edition. Look around. If I don't have it, maybe I can get it.
But it is not the big
I offer the
fuzzy
finest
thing.
goods and lowest prices and
It's when it's activated,
a fine.
it tends to break things. Yeah. Basically, what happened is the Agent of the Blades showed up in Daggerfall and discovered where, from what I know, I haven't actually played the game yet, but they gave, at the end of the game Daggerfall, is that a magic scroll? Okay. the player has an option of
Pleasure
who to
doing
give
business with you.
control of the Numidium to, and then they made Morrowind. So
let that go
normally
too
you
cheaply.
have to choose the one that
drive
actually
off.
happened. But they're like, no, actually, how about this? They all happened. So now we have the warp in the west. And
You're a
the idea of breaking the
You
dragon.
drive a hard bargain.
Alkash, who is the great dragon.
You drive a hard bargain.
Did I already buy that?
I wouldn't make that deal.
Who's the, dragon of time. Apparently, it tends
An
to happen
excellent deal.
when... yeah. It tends to happen just whenever the Numidium is used. But the other thing that happened is in the endings. Well, in one of
That's a
them,
good deal.
the player character is killed. So, since they all happened, I guess that means the Blade's agent of Daggerfall is dead. But he
A
also
bargain
survived
at
in
any
most
price.
of the endings. So maybe he's like only partly dead, but mostly alive. And that's why people can't find him. Kind of hard to interact with. He's only mostly there, but partly not. And another ending was the Emperor has it and gets the Numidium and uses it to extend his influence over the region. And that's why
A fine
the
bargain.
three kingdoms did not break away from the Empire. But they did grow because they also got the Numidium and used it to
That's a good deal.
expand their borders and power and such not. Another one where the Numidium is actually destroyed by
I wouldn't make that deal with
the real Baron Zaya. The Numidium is actually destroyed. It's destroyed in a couple endings,
I
actually.
let that go too cheaply.
So, that's fun too.
A fine bargain.
Does make me wonder how they're gonna do the whole...
You bought that. You drive a hard.
It does make me wonder how they're gonna do the whole Skyrim thing, because you have the whole Civil War.
Thank you for your patronage.
Oh, I like patronizing people. It's the most fun ever.
Good day.
Wow. Books are heavy. Anyway, don't actually need those anymore. Technically, I don't need to even walk around anymore.
Greetings to you.
Greetings.
But okay, that's about a
Hello
length of an
there.
episode.
The feedback isn't fancy,
So,
but it fills you up.
You'll always leave stuff.
gonna go ahead and say let's end that here. And we can ramble on about random stories and more lore in the next episode, where you can see me there too. Bye. Bye.